Buonasera. Welcome to our second tasting for the day. I'm talking in English for the people here in Milano, because tonight we are going to do something we never did before, which is tasting that we are doing at the same time with our guests in New York and in San Francisco. So welcome to everyone, also to the people following us from the US. Good morning to you. It's breakfast time in San Francisco, so it's a different kind of breakfast. Especially, I want to say hello to our friend Nello in New York and his crew from Wine Affairs. We never met personally, but it's the first time and the first opportunity to meet. Then we're going to meet someday. So I'm Alberto. I'm the owner of Montelvini, which is a company which exists for almost 140 years. So it's now me and my sister Sara who are running the winery. So we always been in the territory of Asolo, Prosecco Superiore di UCG, which is now quite famous if we are talking about Prosecco. But if we are talking about Asolo, maybe it's not as famous as other areas for Prosecco. So tonight we are going to do a masterclass which will let you discover some more of this territory and, of course, of our winery. As I was saying before, I'm the 5th generation. I'm running the company for 5 years now. And my father's been president of the consortium for about 7 years. The work we did together, and thanks to his effort, is to let famous again to put Asolo on the map again, because it was famous quite some years ago. And then recently it was not as famous, as known as some other areas. So in the last 10 years, when the Prosecco became very famous, also the people started to know this territory, which is the smallest area of production of Prosecco. And but our experts will tell you more about it later. So what is doing Montelvini? Most of all, we want to be ambassadors of our territory, of Asolo, and we want to guarantee sustainability, which is a term which is commonly used recently, sometimes too much. So for us, sustainability means not only respecting the environment, but also guaranteeing a safe workplace for our employees, and also to be sustainable in terms of investments. So we are a family company, so everything we invest on our own, of course. There are the banks helping us, but it's also our passion to invest and to promote the territory. So tonight we are going to taste 3 versions of Asolo Prosecco Superiore. It's going to be a little different from what is usually done. So we were going to start from an extra dry, so from the sweeter, then we will pass to the brut, and in the end, an extra brut. For the explanation, they are going to help me, my mates, Davide, who is the export sales manager, who's been working for us for 3 years, and 4 years already. It passed quite quickly. And Gianni, who, even if he's younger, it's for almost 10 years working with our company, and he's in charge especially for the US and Canada. Not only that, but of course tonight we are connected with the US, so he's the man in charge. So I pass the microphone to Davide, that we will tell you more about Asolo Prosecco Superiore. Thank you, everyone.
Grazie Alberto. Can you hear me? Yeah. Grazie Alberto, thank you so much. Hello everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here. Even if we are not physically connected, this is in any case a nice connection, and I'm feeling so honored to be here tonight for you, with you, and representing Montelvini. My name is Davide Zanette. I'm the Expo Sales Manager. I'm here in Montelvini since 4 years. I have, that's a sort of paradox. I have a technical background, and I worked many years in a multinational company with international profiles. But then I was really, the industry was not my life. I followed my heart. I'm sommelier since more than 20 years. I'm an Italian sommelier with FISA. FISA is the association that will serve in these days. Thank you guys. Fantastic as every time. And I followed my heart, and then I'm sommelier. I'm a teacher in the sommelier courses in Treviso, where we live. And thanks to Alberto that got me the opportunity to work in this wine environment, it makes my life really fantastic. Thank you, Alberto. So I'm here tonight to lead the masterclass along with Gianni, and I let Gianni to present himself. Please, Gianni.
Okay, so hi everybody. Good morning, San Francisco. Good afternoon, New York, and good evening, Milan. This is something I really wanted to say from the beginning. So, as you probably understood, my name is Gianni Zucchetto. I'm Export Area Manager for North and South America, and together with other countries like UK, Ireland, and Russia. I've been working in Montelvini for roughly 9 years in different positions, and now my main focus is trying to develop the US market for the company. So what we would try to do this evening is to go through a basic presentation of the Asolo Prosecco. So we've done many presentations in time, and one thing we noticed is that there's always a little bit of confusion. So obviously, I imagine most of you know everything we're going to talk about, but it's always better to say something twice than maybe miss one part of it. So we're going to go through the basics just to know what we're going to go and taste later on. So we've created this slide with 5 different topics, very easy, very basic stuff, just to go through what Asolo Prosecco Superiore is and all its different characteristics. So the first thing I would like to talk about is just the production area and appellation. So we've created this, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. We've created this, this map. So on the right-hand side, obviously, we're talking especially for our followers in the United States. You see the map of Italy, where the region of Veneto is highlighted. Then on the left, you see specific, we're going into detail of the region of Prosecco. So on the left-hand side map, you can see the Veneto region and the Friuli Venezia Giulia region. Those are the 2 regions where Prosecco can be produced. So you can see the cream color, okay? So it covers the whole of the Friuli Venezia Giulia and most of the Veneto. Exception made for 2 provinces in the southwest, Verona and Rovigo. So anywhere in that cream color area, you can produce the basic Prosecco, Prosecco DOC. Going into more specific, you can see a slightly darker area, which is the DOC Treviso. So here we're talking about the original province, where Prosecco was born and where the characteristics of soil and weather are the most ideal to make Prosecco. So between the larger DOC and the DOC Treviso, we're talking about 488 million bottles produced last year. So you can understand those are huge numbers, very impressive, and they're constantly growing. Within the Treviso area, we have 2 DOCGs. The red one is the DOCG Valdobbiadene, Conegliano Valdobbiadene, that produces 92 million bottles. And then finally, we have the green area, the Prosecco DOCG Asolo, which is a newer reality, a smaller reality, and the reality we're part of. It's nicknamed the secret Prosecco because, as you can see, the sheer dimension and numbers of production are completely different from the other realities. So moving forward, we're just going to quickly see the grape composition. So as you know, Prosecco is the name of a wine and it's not a grape. So what does this mean? The grape that makes Prosecco is called Glera. You must have a minimum of 85% up to 100%. That's a decision that every winemaker makes. Obviously, when you're talking about a quality product, you're talking about 100% Glera. The remaining 15% can be blended with the varietals you can see, Pinot Bianco, Grigio, Chardonnay, or the most typical autochthonous grapes from the Veneto region, Verdisio, Pereira, and Bianchetta. So moving on into talking about specifically about the Asolo Superiore DOCG. Just some numbers to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So 19 municipalities, so 19 small hamlets where this Prosecco, this varietal Prosecco can be grown and produced. The yield is 13,500 kilos per hectare. Density, 3,000 vines per hectare. All these regulations are given by the consortium of the Asolo Prosecco. Every producer must follow them in order for their wine to be classified as DOCG Asolo. Soil composition, limestone and iron-rich soil. Asolo is one of the first hills you find coming up from the Adriatic Sea. So it's the first hills that then become the Alps further along. So you have a lot of wind blowing up from the south and cold weather coming down from the north, which makes it an ideal place to grow Prosecco, a very acidic type of wine. Under the DOCG regulations, there can be 4 types of Prosecco. The basic still wine, no CO2, the frizzante, spumante, and finally the DOCG sui lieviti, which means it's re-fermented in the bottle, like you would do with a champagne, just to give you an idea, but without removing the yeast. One fun fact is that the Montello is also very famous for the DOCG's Bordeaux-style reds. We have one within our range that was tasted this afternoon in the previous wine tasting that was done at 2 p.m. But it's a very good area for that type of wines too. Moving forward, classification. So, Prosecco, what are we drinking? What are we pouring in a glass? So, as I explained before, now we know the differences between DOC, DOCG, DOC Treviso, etc., etc. Then we also need to know what kind of wine is it. Is it a still wine? It means it has zero CO2 within the bottle. Frizzante must have between 1 and 2.5 bars of pressure. That for the US is 36 psi. While for the spumante, the bottle pressure averages a 5 bar, which is roughly 75 bars. Based on sugar content, instead, we have 4 classifications. Extra brut, so the driest version of them all, that goes from 0 to 6. Brut, from 6 to 12, but it can also be from 0 to 12, depending on the winemaker's choice. Extra dry and dry. The most common versions used nowadays are mainly extra dry and brut, brut especially in the UK and US market. The last slide, just quickly going to talk about winemaking. So how is Prosecco made? So it's just a few phases. It's obviously very simplified because we don't have all day to talk about it. So harvested in late September. We just finished harvest a couple of weeks ago. The grapes are then pressed. We get the juice, the must, that is fermented in open vats. This transforms the juice into the base wine. It gets filtered. It gets ready for the second fermentation with addition of yeasts and sugar. Second fermentation takes roughly from 30 to 60 days, depending on what we're looking for. Once that is done, we have the CO2, the alcohol content, and everything we need to get the wine bottled and ready for distribution. So these 5 slides are just a very brief, very introductory style of presentation for the wines we're going to go and taste now onwards. So I would pass the mic to Davide that will go through wine tasting and a few aspects.
Thank you, Gianni. It was fantastic. I'm so proud of you. And we can start to serve the wine. So here in Milan and also in San Francisco, New York, in order to be aligned, so we can taste the wine at the same time. I want to first, even if these are really basic information, I know that every one of you are really good wine taster. I'm sure of that. But you know the difference between the method, if you are tasting a wine subjectively or objectively, this will change completely the evaluation about the wine. So the sommelier and the method in order to taste the wine, this could give a universal method in order to have the same result. This is really important. I'm sommelier, I know, this is my imprinting, and I apologize for that, but it's really important to fix these 3 steps before to start any new tasting. So first, we have the visual analysis. We will do that. So what we check in the visual analysis? The color, the shades, and different highlights of the wine, the limpidity, that means if the wine is clear or not, if there are parts in the wine that are making the wine unclear. The texture means a sort of message what could be the structure of the wine, but in order to check the texture, we should swirl the glass, you know? That's really common for the wine taster. I strongly suggest to do it with still wines, but not with sparkling wines. Our winemaker did so many efforts to produce CO2, so please don't destroy in 2 seconds, right? So I would prefer that you check the glasses without swirling, because there is a treasury that is the CO2, what we did. It took a long time, so we prefer not to do it. And then the effervescence. This is a part that is, of course, specific for the sparkling wine, and we will judge immediately when all the people will have the wine. Then we have olfactory analysis. That is the second step. Here we check the aromas. So the category can be fruity, floral, woody, or other stuff. It depends if are primary, secondary, or third aromas. Then we have intensity and duration, means how long is the aroma and how intense it is. And then the complexity. Complexity means how many aromas you can feel in the glass, you can perceive in the glass. Finally, you have the taste analysis. So means hardness and softness. Hardness are tannins, acidity. Softness are the sugar, the alcohol. And the balance between the 2 parts make the wine, I would say, with a good equilibrium. The body, then the intensity, the persistence in the mouth, so how many seconds the wine persists in your mouth, and then the final results, it means the quality. As my personal vision of the wine, I think there are 3 aspects that a wine must respect. First is the quality. We cannot accept at this day, in these years, a wine with defects. So the first focus of a wine is a quality. The second is the typicality. So it should respect the territory. There are many wines in the world, but as Alberto said at the beginning, We want that our wines represent our terroir. We don't want to copy anyone else. So typicality is really, for me, the second must in order to have a great wine. The third, that maybe it's makes you smile, that the wine, it should be easy to drink. We should not look at wine, we should drink. So if it's nice in the nose but not easy to drink, this is not the focus for a wine. So we hope that our wine will be different about that. So I think everyone has the wine, so we can start. Here you can have our data sheet of the first one is the Asolo Prosecco di OCG Superiore Extra Dry. Extra dry means not it is really dry, but is the sweetest version of our Asolo range. As you can see, it has 15 grams sugar per liter, and traditionally, the extra dry, it has been always the Prosecco tasted, drunk in our region, and the most, I mean the easier to access. Let's go through. So about the color, you mean is a straw pale color, very light. If it's too intense, this is not Prosecco. So look about that. There are no parts, so it's very clear, it's very limpid. About the effervescence, I please you to note that there is a nice foam, even if the wine is served a few minutes ago, and the bubbles are small. So smaller are the bubble, better it has been made the second fermentation. So this is the first message. The CO2 means it's really well integrated in the wine. If the bubbles are so big, means that the CO2 is not well connected with the remaining elements of the wine. You see, you have a nice foam. This is a particular message that the wine, it has been not filtered massively. So it has been just with cold temperature treated in order to maintain proteins that give creaminess to wine. But let's go through and we will see if it's true. So let's go in the aroma. The main characteristic of aromas for Prosecco, for a good Prosecco, are normally fruity, especially golden apple, pear, white peach, and here you can feel it quite well, especially the golden apple. It comes, even if in the sweeter version are not so evident, the minerality of the Asolo. Because as Alberto and Gianni explained, Asolo means a different terroir, a lot of sapidity and a lot of minerality that you can already perceive at the nose, but it will be much more, you can perceive much more when you taste the wine. Let's go through. I suggest if this is the first wine to drink a little bit more, just a second, to refresh the palate. You know that the in the tasting, you are recognizing the 4 basic flavors, so the sweet, the sour, the salty, and the bitterness. The tongue, in the top, you can perceive the sweetness. In the side, the acidity, the sourness, and the saltiness. And at the back of the tongue, you perceive the bitterness. When you taste this, you can really perceive the equilibrium, but if you watch out, if you pay attention, the sides of your tongue, where there are the tasting buds that are perceiving the sourness and the saltiness, are really excited. The wine is an extra dry, but it is not too sweet as not too dry. It's a fantastic equilibrium. It's great because the equilibrium between the hardness and the softness, it's perfect. In fact, we are tasting and drinking a lot this as a starter or with aperitif, just because it's perfect in all the moment. It's not so difficult to drink it just for this fantastic equilibrium. But it is not easy to maintain every time this balance, having the acidity, having the sugar, having the sapidity. It's really, really a difficult job to do it. But in this case, as extra dry, I'm finding with the very nice equilibrium and adaptable in every moment of the day.
Okay, so while Davide rests a little bit, I'll go through just a little bit of information on Montelvini, on the winery itself, as we haven't said anything about it yet. So here you can see a little bit of information just to give you an idea of who we are and what we do. So, as I said before, it's a family-owned winery based in 1881 from the Serena family. Last year was a very good year. We reached 27.5 million euro turnover, and export is 25% of this turnover within 50 countries worldwide. We actually added the last country in September, that was Morocco. So as you can imagine, it's you can find us anywhere in Europe, North America, and Asia. Then Africa and the Southeast, Middle East is not as distributed as the rest. Distribution. We are a HoReCa-based company. So we don't sell a lot to retail, to supermarkets. We've taken that road in the last 2 or 3 years. It's developing very well, but the core business is still HoReCa. This means that for us, this year has been quite difficult, let's say, because obviously, as you can imagine, being probably 80-85% HoReCa based with all restaurants and all bars closed, we actually saw a complete shutdown for almost 3 to 4 months. Things have been picking up, but it was hard. So we actually, with our customers, with our distributors, we activated some plans in order to get things going once again, because we needed it, they needed it. So we could financially help them, promoting and going on the market, helping them out to start pushing these volumes back again. And it's worked. Things are going good. The last 3 months have been very positive for us. So the Montelvini company itself owns 35 hectares of vineyards, and all the rest of the grapes is bought by 250 local producers from the area, from the Treviso province, that supply us with the grapes we need to make our bottled wine. So overall, we're talking about 6.5 million bottles, of which 3 million are Prosecco, and 450 are Asolo Prosecco DOCG, which are the bottles we're tasting this evening. Obviously, even in this tough year, we've never stopped. We've always been looking forward to keep on moving, because that's the bottom line. You need to keep on moving, to keep the momentum going, so you can have a future. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll have the Prosecco Rosé, which is a controversial matter in the Prosecco world, but it's also requested by foreign markets. So it's going to be something interesting for the next few months. And also we have created a couple of bottles, the Asolo Night, which is a LED Asolo Prosecco. So it's a very funky, futuristic kind of bottle. And finally, the Asolo Cru, which Alberto Serena will explain later on. Together with that, in the next few years, we've still got a lot of investments planned. We're going to update the winery, renew the winery completely, invest in bottling plants, and in the general production line of the wine itself. So we've got a lot of projects in mind, and this will help us move forward and keep on gaining that momentum we need to get where we want to go. So, have you rested?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, cool.
We're good. Yeah, it's okay. No, I think people has already the wine, so I suggest to go on before.
Okay.
Before to transform the wine is something else, so it's not. Yes, it's not the case. So we are passing from the extra dry to the brut. It's difficult sometimes to taste different Prosecco just with the difference of the sugar residual, because maybe in the mind of the people it's the same wine. Possiamo aspettare un attimo per servire 5 minuti, non di più. It's difficult sometimes because just with the sugar residual, you can imagine it's the same wine. It's not exactly the same wine. I strongly suggest to keep a little bit of wine in your glass, even if the wine will be warmer. At least even later, you can check what are the difference between the different wines. It doesn't matter if the wine is a little bit warmer. So now we are going to taste the Asolo DOCG Superiore Brut. It has, in comparison to the first one, the first one has 15 grams sugar, the second one has 10 grams sugar, so it's a little bit drier. But again, the focus of the wines are to be in balance, to have a nice equilibrium. It doesn't matter if there is 15 grams sugar or 5 grams sugar as the last one. We should find the correct equilibrium between all the elements in the wine. So, let's go through with the visual analysis. This is also a very light straw yellow with some green highlights. The bubbles are still so fine and persistent. It depends on the glass, because this is really depending on what kind of glass we have. Someone could have a lot of bubbles, someone not, but I'm guaranteeing there are very nice bubbles, fine and persistent. Let's go through on the olfactory analysis. Here in the brut, we can feel much more the golden apple and much more the minerality. So there are two. In the extra dry, it was a mix. Maybe a little bit more complexity, thanks also to the sugar. A few grams sugar helps to highlight sometimes better the aromas. Here it's more straight, and the extra brut will be straighter again. So here it's much more on the fruity category and on the minerality. These two are really perfect. And with no defect and with no particular elements that are going out of this. Let's go to the tasting. It's important you understand there are Prosecco and Prosecco. That's why Gianni explained the difference between the word of Prosecco. Because sometimes, you know, when I was really younger, I hated Prosecco and I loved Prosecco. Now I am defending Prosecco because you can feel in your mouth the difference, maybe with others. This is persistent. Even if it's considered a light wine, it has a structure. It's a duration in your mouth. And the aroma persists for many seconds. So it has almost persistence in terms of seconds of a red wine. And the durability, I mean, you can perceive it longer and longer. And your tongue, the sides of your tongue is still excited about the acidity and the minerality. This is even much more highlighted in comparison to the extra dry, where the 5 gram sugar more are making the wine more soft with some more velvet in comparison to the brut. Again, equilibrium. The wine is blissful, and it's easy to drink. So I'm expect to drink another one. So that's the focus of every winemaker, but especially this is our mission, and I think this brut as the extra dry got the point.
Okay, so thank you for that. So now we're gonna give you an overview of Montelvini in the USA. So I personally wanted to divide this slide in 3 different parts: the past, the present, and the future. So the past was interesting because we could not use the Montelvini brand in the US market. In the early 2000s, we had a legal controversy with a Californian winery, which I will not mention, that said that their name was too close to Montelvini. And so we got sued, and basically we could not use the brand Montelvini in the US market. And this was the case until 2018, when we decided to take matters into our own hands and get this issue solved, and we managed to do so. So from 2019, we can once again use the Montelvini brand. This does not mean we didn't work in the US market. We did. We have a very good US market, but it was mainly based on private labels or secondary brands of the company. So since 2019, what we've been trying to do, what the main goal for Montelvini's export is basically to go out there with our own brand, with the brand we know that represents us, that represents what we make. And we've been traveling throughout the United States, doing all kinds of masterclasses like this one this evening, wine tastings, wine fairs, etc., looking to start building that distribution of our own brand that we've missed until now. The future, at least for what I'm concerned, is to find reliable partners that understand the philosophy we have within the company, who we are, what we make, the quality of our products, and together try and lower the gap we have with other Prosecco producers in the US market that have had a lot more years to get their wines distributed. So we're looking for, this is one of the reasons why we're here. We're looking for solid relationships, solid partnerships with US importers and distributors. So that's the best case scenario, but what we're aiming towards, that's for sure.
Yeah, very good, Gianni. Thank you so much. So, what I missed in the previous tasting, so how to pair the different Prosecco with food. Of course, I mentioned briefly at the beginning, extra dry is better with aperitifs, starter, finger foods. Why not with fried things? The brut that is a little bit drier can be with some pasta, but it depends on the dressing. This can change completely the pairing. White meat or fresh cheese. This is the connection, the perfect connection with the brut. About the extra brut, we will discuss now, because it's Asolo were the first DOCG that introduced a so drier version in the world of Prosecco. Then also Valdobbiadene joined this year or last year, but we are producing the Asolo Extra Brut since 3 years, Alberto, roughly? More, 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. So this is our focus, this is our core wine, this is our soul, because we believe in the integrity of the glera in the territory of Asolo, without any, or with less interference of sugar. So let's go through with the straight wine. Let's see the color. So the color, even in this case, very light yellow color, very limpid. There are no parts. Even in this case, bubbles are fine and really persistent, and the foam is nice. Even if the wine is served since a few minutes, the aspect, the aesthetic of the wine is still really, really, really nice. Let's go with the olfactory analysis. If you smell the 3 glasses, and we are even talking about 3 Prosecco, it seems we are talking about 3 different wines. The extra dry is large, and the extra brut is vertical. You have maybe less aromas, but they are more straight, and you can perceive immediately the nature of the wine and the minerality of the terroir. There is a little bit less of golden apple like the extra dry and the brut. It's a bit more on fruity like peach, white peach and pear. But much more stones, minerals, sapidity. That's the natural imprinting of the extra brut in comparison to the others. It is like that, pure. Let's go with the tasting. That's great, because even if we changed the sugar residual, the equilibrium, the balance is still there. Of course, the wine here is much more, it is stronger in the sense that you have more the sense of verticality. The acidity, it's much more present. Sapidity, the sourness, it's a top level. And sometimes it's difficult with a very low sugar residual to maintain such equilibrium. It's really, really difficult. But the wine keep its strongness without lose the equilibrium with the remaining parts of the wine. Let's taste again. Sometimes, not only in the Charmat method, but also in the Champenoise method, when the sparkling wines are very dry, like Extra Brut or Pas d'Osé, you find some wine, the risk is to find some wine that with very low sugar content, once you swallow, they drop down. They have no persistence, right? Because, of course, sugar helps the wine to be longer in the mouth. In this case, the wine is not dropping down. It's remaining in your mouth. It is persistent in terms of aroma, in terms of intensity, and this is a sort of magic. Most of people think that Prosecco is an easy product to produce. It is not like that, I can guarantee. I'm tasting and drinking a lot of Prosecco all the year, and I have a lot of experience on that, and this is not an easy thing to do. So really thanks to our winemaker, Stefano Nandi, because did a really a good job. About pairing. Of course, here we use other elements to be paired. It's not, I mean, pairing the wine with the food is not so easy. The wine should not cover the food and vice versa. This is not easy game. In this case, with Extra Brut, with a very low sugar residual, we recommend with seafood, raw fish, or with the shellfish maybe. Why not with some pairing with contrast, some hard cheese, because the acidity helps to clean up the palate. If you eat something that is a little bit fat, this nice acidity, this nice saltiness helps the palate to be clean and to accept the food again. So why not with a nice Parmigiano? I know it's a paradox that to combine a very aged cheese with a sparkling wine, but do it. And I think you get some fun about that. So, I hope it was interesting. Of course, me, Gianni, and Alberto, of course, we are available for questions about further information regarding Montelvini and our wines. But now the time is going to be over, so I would like to pass the ball again to Alberto, that will discuss about the Super Cru of Asolo.
Thank you, Davide. Before we move on to the last part, I must say something, because I'm very proud of you guys. You're great professionals. Not only of you, but also the rest of the team, Lisa, Alessandro, and Daniele, who are here, and the rest of the team who are home. Besides being great professionals, they're also very helpful, and they're always with a smile. So it's not usual, this kind of thing in a winery, or maybe in a company. But to work with these guys, it's an honor for me, and I feel responsible for them somehow. And again, the last part of our masterclass is regarding our project, which is called the Rediscovered Vineyard. So it's an ancient vineyard that we found out in the center of Asolo. You must consider that Asolo, it's the typical Italian small town. It's very beautiful. Of course, I'm from Asolo, so I must say that. But if you really had the chance to come someday to visit us, it's really unique experience. So this project started in 2017 when I talked to some people living in Asolo. They have a beautiful, typical Italian villa, old style from the 17th century, I think. And they had this kind of vineyard who was abandoned. It had been abandoned for almost 20 years, I think. And they talked to me, it's really a pity for us to see this vineyard which is abandoned. So they asked me if I was interested. Of course I was, because it's the only vineyard in the small town, in the old town of Asolo. And when we started this project, we found out that this vineyard was already existing by 200 years ago. So we did the research. We found out that was on a Napoleonic maps already with the same extension. So it's been amazing. And to be an entrepreneur is not only to be successful, of course, to sell a lot of bottles, but it is also paying a tribute to the territory where we are living. So I wanted to pay this tribute to Asolo. And the research was not only in the sense of rediscovering the vineyard, we also did an analysis on the clones already which were still existing in the vineyard. And we found out a clone which is unique from Asolo. So we replanted it. It took about 2 years for this process. So we planted the vineyard last year. And hopefully, not next year, but in the few coming years, we will be able to taste this cru of Asolo. If you think about Prosecco, 99% is coming from a single clone, which produces a lot of quantity and good quality. So this is a unique process, and we will tell you more about it in the next coming years. So I wanted to show you a video of Asolo, and eventually, if you have some question here or in New York and San Francisco, we will be pleased to answer to you. So if you could start the video. There's supposed to be the music. So this is me, of course. So this was the vineyard 3 years ago, how it looked like. So it was really abandoned. We found out some vines were not used anymore, not only Glera, but for instance, there was Malvasia or some Barbera, which is really unusual for our territory. Barbera does not belong to our territory. So this was the shape of the vineyard back in 2017. So what we could do, it was, we could have just replanted the vines. We didn't want to do that. You see these red sticks? It's to make a scenery of the vineyard. So the guy who was talking before is a paisagista, landscape manager. And you see the place where it is. It's really unique. So this is a villa of almost the medieval period. And you must consider that Asolo has an history which dates back to the medieval period, not only to that period, but for wine under the Republic of Venice, the wines coming from Asolo were the mostly taxed wine because of their quality. So then the history almost was lost. Until some years, we started to rediscover this kind of vines. Not only Glera, for instance, in our territory we cultivate Incrocio Manzoni. Then also red grapes, as Davide was saying before, and also Gianni. And also Recantina, which is a unique vine which grows in our area, because it's also not my only purpose, but also the aim of other wine growers who want to rediscover this kind of vineyards, because producing is not just volumes, it's also biodiversity. Okay, this is quite a long video. Of course, the best way should be to come in our territory. So, as I was saying before, this was a tough year. There will be, again, some more difficult months coming ahead. But with our spirit and our team, I'm sure we will overcome all the difficulties. Thank you, and if there are some questions, please, go ahead.
From San Francisco, they have a couple of questions. The first one is if you have an importer in San Francisco, and who is the importer, if yes?
So in San Francisco, we do work, we have a couple of importers, but none of them hold the Montelvini brand. So it's corporations that started before 2019. So with other brands that are part of the Montelvini group. But Montelvini itself is not in San Francisco or California in general.
Okay.
I'm sure you get a bottle on the way.
Thank you. The second question is, what is the impact of tariff in the US? Tariff of the wines?
So luckily enough, until now, we've been fairly lucky because while other European countries have been taxed, have been additionally taxed to import their wines in the US. For now, Italian wines are still the taxation has not been updated. The problem with this is that every couple of months, every 3-5 months, there is a new possibility for this additional taxation to be added. So we're always living on on the edge, because we never know when this is going to happen for us too. So for now, things have been constant throughout years, but we always have this this possibility that Italian wines could be taxed as much as France, Germany, Spain, etc., etc.
Thank you. We don't have more questions from the US.
Okay, if there are not questions here, I think we're almost through. And again, I want to say thank to you here in Milano, to the people in New York and in San Francisco. I hope this was interesting, and go Asolo. And go Montelvini.